Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Elliot. I'm with Arbiter's implementation team. I also have Nate here, Nate Evans. He'll be taking you through the product and kind of showing you the presentation side. We do have a Q&A section that you can put questions in or things you want to see again. Feel free to enter that in at any time. We'll be sure that somebody's monitoring it and getting to those as soon as possible. We will be uploading this webinar to our YouTube channel, so if you want to come back and revisit it at a later time, we'll make sure you have that available. We also have past webinars that we've completed and upcoming ones that you can register for. There's no limit. Feel free to join as many as you'd like. I'll make sure to put those links in the chat so that you guys have access to it. With that, I will turn it over to Nate.
Thank you, Elliot. I will be walking us through, as he said, eligibility and registration, and we're going to jump in here with eligibility for our officials. So when we talk about eligibility, it's a set of requirements that someone must complete in order to participate in games. Now, in this case, we're going to be talking about it for officials. So this is the ability to set up the requirements that each of your officials need to go through before they're eligible. And that can be for different tiers, as we call them. So we have here our period. So it's going to be our 2021-22 school year, getting ready for this upcoming season. So far, we've set up 5 sports. And then within each of these sports, we have what we call tiers. So you can set up different requirements in order to work different levels of games. And here shows the number of people who have enrolled or indicated that they want to go for postseason baseball, and one person so far has completed all of the requirements that we've created. But we'll just jump in, and today we're going to, as we go through, we'll use softball as our example, and we'll show how to get that started. So we're going to add softball here. Choose our sport. Now, any of the information that we input here will translate into the legacy assigning system. So anything that you've been doing, this will still feed into your subgroups. It's going to feed into your main account, and it's available. Now we can choose when do we want this to open and close. And just so, for the purposes of today's webinar, I'm going to put it so it's in the past so we can see this. And we'll say that softball, people are allowed to go to enroll in it until next May 1st. So that's going to give everybody a year to enroll, at which point they can we will be launching next year's eligibilities. So we'll create that. Now, we haven't defined any tiers, and again, tiers are the different levels that an official needs to or is allowed to go for to be eligible. So we'll do a postseason, and this is going to have more requirements. So let me jump over here to our, just grab some Arbiter photos here. And similarly, when we upload this image is going to trickle down. So if we want to show that somebody has completed their Arbiter Sports postseason eligibility requirements, that's going to show up, and that will show on the People tab up here, and when you're making your scheduling, both for you and for your subgroups. Now we can add more than one here, so we can have separate requirements, and we'll do one for postseason and one for varsity. We'll choose that next one. Confirm that. Okay, so now when we're setting this up, as I said before, an eligibility is a set of requirements that an official needs to complete in order to work that level of game. So in this case, it's going to be varsity, and the different requirements we have. So you can indicate that they need to complete a background check, complete an online clinic, attend an in-person event, complete a registration, and it currently supports if you've been using the legacy registration system, that is supported. And then it also supports going back and doing an online test where you can have your officials complete that test. For each of these requirements, as the official completes the requirement, if it's the last eligibility, if it's the last thing that they need to complete, they'll automatically get marked as required. So for example, if the official has registered, so we'll say that they need to register, and that they need to, for this one, do the 2021-22 registration. And then we'll add another one, and we'll say they need to take the test, and that they need to because we're doing softball here, we'll do 2021 softball, and they need for post, or this is for varsity, that they need to get an 80%. At this point, if they register and then they were to complete the test and get over 80%, they would be marked as eligible. Something that's new, so for those of you who have been using our legacy eligibility system, you're used to this system of creating these requirements. Something we've added is the ability to add sets, and within a set you can indicate how many of each of the items the person needs to complete. So in this case, let's assume that everybody needs to do some concussion training just to make sure that every official out there has some safety protocols under their belt. They can either do the online concussion management course, which is a clinic, or we'll add a couple here, or if you're offering a few in-person options for this, we could say they can do the online clinic at Alta High, or they can do, the in-person clinic at Alta High, or the in-person clinic at Davis. For those of you that have some of these that are coming from your local associations are hosting these, you also have the option to choose one of the local association accounts and use their information for your clinic or for the requirement. Similarly, if you have a local association that wants to do their own eligibility or do something on top of what you're doing, they can pull in the requirement from you. So they can say the person has to be registered with the state office, but on top of that, they also need to complete the requirements within our own account. Now, once we're done with this, we can publish this. Two other options that are available with each of these is we can also say, in order to be varsity eligible, they had to at least be in the previous year eligible, let's say for JV, meaning no one is allowed to do varsity in their first year. Similarly, you could do the same thing, but for postseason. So in some areas, I know varsity is allowed to, you can do that your first year, but you're not allowed to do postseason. So we could set this up to say you can't do postseason. You can also put a minimum age. And what this means is that no official who is under that age is allowed to indicate that they want to go for that eligibility. Now, last but not least, especially as we're coming across this, coming on the next school year, and so this is about to switch over, we've also added a very highly requested feature, which is the ability to duplicate this. Once we are done with the season, we can archive it. So if we jump over to our archive, we'll see that we have our previous years here, so we can still come in and we can see any of the information we need to about those officials. But under the current one, let's say that the 2021-22 school year is coming to an end. We can say we want to duplicate this. We're going to name it 2022-23. Rename it. We're going to group it by school year. Now, by default, it's going to jump to the following school year of whatever it was, and we'll save that. And what this does is all of these requirements that we've just set up, which, as we know, can take a little bit of time, are immediately duplicated. So now all of that information, all of that work we just did is copied into this upcoming year. And then we can jump in here and we can choose the new options that we need to. For example, if you have different clinic dates, you would come in here and you can set those up for the upcoming season. Now, before I jump to the official side to see eligibility, I'm going to continue here and show you how to set up registration and how this works. For those coming from the legacy system, previously for each, you would typically create a new registration for each sport, or if there are specific requirements such as new versus returning, or if there were discounts for your signers or for observers. We've streamlined this in the new system so that you can create a single registration that has all of the information that you need, and where you can set up what things display based on that. So we'll say this is the 2021-22 registration. You can collect local association information, and we've added the ability to choose a primary or secondary association. So for those states, if you're in an area where officials are only allowed to get postseason assignments through the primary association, this will keep track of that, and this keeps it separate. So they may indicate during registration that they work for 4 different associations, but you can say, I want to know which is their primary, and that is indicated by that official. Similarly, you can put in how many total associations each official is allowed to choose. So if the official is a member, if you don't want any official to be a member of more than more than 4 accounts, as in this case, we can put a cap on that. Just like the legacy registration, if you collect background check consent, we can turn this on. By turning this on, it ensures that the official has to complete that consent before they can finish registration. It also is going to ensure that we collect date of birth and social security numbers for all of those officials. And to streamline, to make it easier from the previous system, we've made it now that you can just choose all of the sports that are part of this registration. So you just choose the sports and it's going to add those on. Next, we can set up a welcome, and this is where you can type in any custom verbiage you want. So welcome to the 2021-22 season. Again, you have this WYSIWYG editor. You can put in anything you want, and you can put in your own custom welcome. So we want people to know they're coming and joining the Arbiter Sports team. So I'll upload that. Next, we have user consent. You can put in any text here. Now, this is very similar to the welcome, but on the welcome, it's just informational. So there's nothing that the official needs to do in order to complete the welcome. For user consent, the official must check a I agree checkbox before they can proceed on from this step. So if you have specific things regarding their recognition as being a independent contractor or other employment related things, if you have things related to their conduct, you can put any of those in here, and that official must agree to these terms before they proceed. They simply cannot go forward without it. Next, we can choose what personal information we want to collect. Because in this case, we're going to collect a background check consent, I'm not allowed to turn off either social security number or dates of birth. If you don't require background checks, that part is not required. For those cases where you have additional information you want to collect, you can use the questions section, and this is where you can pull in any number of questions similar to the custom fields that you were collecting previously to get this information from your officials. If you want to require it, so it's something that, for example, if you're going to send everybody a shirt once they register, we can turn this on, and it would require them to give a shirt size before proceeding forward. Let me just call out one particular piece here. Many states collect conflict of interest information. They want to know which high schools or colleges each of the officials may have attended or have someone attending currently. If you add conflicts of interest, one of the things that we've upgraded is now this actually links to our list of schools. So instead of simply being a free-form text box that the person can type in, you can add this, and then they're selecting it from the actual schools. So when we save it to the database, it's actually saving your information tied to that specific school. That will make reporting and assigning much easier. Now, today that's not tied into the assigning directly, but that's something that we've built and we're planning to make available. If we need to add new questions, we can just choose to add, and then we'll just say we want to add hat size. Okay, and it drops it into the list. Now, one of the biggest changes from our previous system, and that's one of the biggest steps forward, is the ability to set your own fees. And we've made this flexible enough to handle pretty much any association that we've worked with so far. Each of these fees you can set up to have specific criteria that, if they are true, will then either charge or deduct a certain amount. In this case, you can see there's no rules around this regular season rate. I'm going to get rid of this registration fee. So we'll just have a regular season rate and then a late fee. And as you can see, this one is across the board. So it's one time, it's going to charge it just once. And when the person registers, it'll charge $25. Now this next fee is anyone who registers after July 31st of this year. It's going to charge a $15 late fee for each sport. each of these fees is you get to type in the name of the fee, and that exact wording is what displays to the official when they're registering. So on their shopping cart, you get to decide exactly how you want that to look and lay out to them. It will also be in this order, so you can control this. Similarly, you can do something like a new official discount. So in a lot of states or areas, they either give new officials, they charge a little bit more or a little less. But if in this case, we want to recruit new officials as much as possible. So if they were not previously registered, then we're going to give them $15 off, and that's one time. So that's going to make it so their base fee would be the equivalent of $10. Let me open this so we can see what those specific things are. So let's just say we have a youth discount. So the options, let me read through these. The number of sports registered. So you can say if they are registering for more than a certain number of sports, then we want to do a discount. This would work for states that do multi-sport discounts. So maybe the first sport is $70 and it's $15 for each additional. The next one is age. So you can say anyone who is under the age of 18 gets a different rate or a different price. Previously registered. This looks at if they've registered either for any other registration. This also includes those outside of your organization. So if you have, if you give a discount, if they've registered in your neighboring state, then you can do that. So for reciprocity officials that may be crossing the borders, you can say if they've already registered with their primary state, then we will only charge them $15 because we don't need to do all of the due diligence on that official. If they haven't registered with their home state, then it's still full freight. So that gives you that opportunity. Similarly, if you have other registrations, so if you want to say we're going to give a discount for anyone who hasn't registered in a while to try and get new officials, that's certainly possible. And we can say that they either have done that or they haven't. So we would say not equal to if we want to say if they haven't done this, then we're going to give them a discount if they haven't registered previously. So next is registration date. Again, that makes it so your late fees are automatic. There's nothing you have to do to log in to trigger those to happen on a specific date. Once that date is reached, this rule would then kick in because this condition would be true. Sport. So this allows us to indicate specific sports, and we can choose more than once. We can say, I want this to apply if they're registering for any one of these. So if they're doing baseball, basketball, soccer, or softball, then I want to charge $25. So you can do that if you have different rates for different sports. Now, each of these, you can also have multiple conditions. You can say if the sport is one of those four and their state is our state, then we're going to charge $25. And then we can create a separate condition that would show up. So in this case, we would say, well, let's get rid of basketball and we'll just call this spring sports in state. And we charge this for each sport, we're going to charge this amount. So it's $25 per sport. And then we'll save that. Again, each of these, as the officials register, it just checks to say, do the conditions apply? And if so, it charges or discounts. So you can say, we want to give specific discounts on those things. And the last is specific subgroup membership. So if you give discounts or if you have pricing that's based on their membership or their current membership with the local chapters, then you can either charge or discount specific amounts. Now let me jump over to the official side. So similar to how you're doing it today, let me jump over to the central hub. When you have it come to your central hub, they'll click on the registration link just like they have before, but the interface is going to now look different, and we're trying to streamline this to make this as simple as possible. Well, we want to register for the upcoming season, so you can't have two registrations open at the same time if you have some overlap. In this case, we allow officials to register through the 31st of this month, but we open up the following year a month earlier than that. So that allows you to have two registrations open at the same time. By default, the registration that is going to close soonest is going to show first, and that makes sure that if you do separate registrations for fall, winter, or spring, those fall sports are going to show up first to make sure that the officials are jumping to that first and getting those done, since the season will end sooner. But in this case, we'll just we'll register. I don't have an account yet, so I'll create one. We'll just call this okay. So this verifies that the official's email address it checks to see if it's already on file. If it is, so let's say that this is I register with my personal account, then we'll pull that up and it will say it's already in use, and then click here to sign in. Now in this case, I'm not going to, I'll just do my new one. And part of this is to create a single user profile. Now later on, once I actually complete registration, this is going to prompt the official to merge their account if we find a duplicate. So we take the official's information, we compare it against the other officials in the system, and if we can find a potential duplicate, if we find a duplicate, then we prompt them, we say it looks like there's a duplicate, let's merge your account. And again, the goal with that is to make it so every official has a single user profile. If they do merge their accounts, it takes all of the information, so all of their eligibility, registration, testing, and any other information, and it does merge it together. So now that we've created our Arbiter Sports account, we'll sign in. Now, all of the information that we put in on the administrative side over here is now going to be prompted and requested from those officials. So we'll go next. Again, we said we were doing softball, so we'll say we want to add that. During registration, officials can choose which tiers they want to go for. If you remember, when I set up the eligibility tiers, I chose that for varsity, they needed to complete the 2021-22 registration. Because of that, this tier is showing up here. Now, if I had set that up as well for postseason, it would display as well. If you set it up so that only officials who have completed an eligibility tier in the past are allowed to go for postseason, for example, that's not checkable, so they can't choose that specific tier. So this makes it so as soon as your officials are registering, it puts them and gets them going for that specific sport. And that will help keep track of those officials for who have enrolled for specific sports, so you can report on that. Okay, we'll go next. So just showing our contact information. When someone creates their account, we do not collect their social security number or date of birth by default. If they need to pull in that, if you need that information for a background check, we will collect that during registration. Again, this is just fake data for our testing or for our demonstration purposes, but that will collect that. Okay, so conflicts of interest. I attended Cottonwood High School, so I'll add that, and I've got a personal affiliation there. But we also will pull in specific universities. So in this case, my niece is attending the University of Utah, and so I can say relatives attending, and I can keep track of this. Now this is storing it, and it's tying my Nate Evans account to this specific high school. So instead of just a free form box where the person can select it, it's actually linking them to that specific account. And then I can also say, I attended Bonneville Junior High School, have a personal affiliation there, and that's getting saved back. So I can set that up for each of those. This is universal. So anyway, if they put this information in, it will become available to you and to your local chapters. You can choose my shirt size. If you need to collect any of this other information, you are certainly able to, so that you can report on this, so that you can use it for any follow-up or demographic information. Okay, next is background check consent. We've worked on this with PeopleTrail to make sure that the language that we provide is compliant. Okay, now my group doesn't have any softball accounts set up, so I'm just going to skip that one. Now this is where it pulls in. So we had said $25 base rate. Now it says I'm a new official because I just created my account, so I've never registered before. If the official is prompted and merges their account during registration, and they had completed it, even though they're using their brand new account that they just put in, it would remove their discount because it would recognize that they had registered previously in a former year. And then we're charging for the spring sports for in-state, and so that all totals up to $35 with a little bit of sales tax for a total of $37.54. We choose to check out, put in our information, and we're registered. Okay, now I'm going to jump over to the eligibility side. And so we have softball is open. We've changed things a little bit. Previously, as soon as an official had completed any of the requirements, they would immediately show up on their eligibility dashboard as going for that specific sport. As you'll see in this case, I'm actually not. I've currently indicated that I want to go for postseason basketball within the Arbiter test account, and that I want to go for the NCAA women's basketball requirements. Now I can add those, but I need to select that. And it, as I showed during registration, that would bring in their specifics. And there's 3 requirements. So it's one of these and all of these. So I have 2 here and 1 here. So there's 3 total things that official needs to complete. I'm going to enroll. Now, as soon as I've enrolled and I said I want to become varsity eligible for softball, this will show all of the requirements with the links to take those. So if I need to go complete the test, I can click take test, and it will pop me straight over there so I can take care of that. I can register. Now, this doesn't show I registered because I didn't actually pay. So until they pay, officials don't get marked registered. Also, until officials pay, they don't get added into your account. So you're not going to get a charge of license for officials who start registration but don't complete it. Until they have paid the registration dues, they won't get added into your account or into any of the local association accounts that they select. Similarly, I can come down here and I can indicate which concussion training course I want to go to, or take an online clinic. And if I click on this, it's just going to launch it, and I can do it right here to make sure that I'm up to snuff on my concussion courses. So that's what the officials do, and it just walks them through it. So it has all this information here. Once they complete registration, it will take them straight to the eligibility dashboard so they can complete those components. Now back on the administrative side, once the officials start completing this, we'll see them come in. And so you can see their current status. You can filter for specific officials. And in this case, we want to pull up somebody specific. And when we open this, so we'll pull up the 2021-22 school year, we can see that I've completed baseball and basketball, and we can see specifically which requirements I've done. Now, if we go back to a different one, the red X means that I have not finished all of my football requirements. I have for basketball, I have for soccer, and I have not for baseball. So for baseball, I still need to do a background check. So it wasn't run either I didn't pass it or it wasn't run recently enough. And similarly for football, they require two separate registrations. I've completed one, but I have not completed the other, and so I'm not done there. But for these others, it has all of that information. So you can see that that's checked off for each of those. And in this case, if we have an actual test, it will actually tell us the full score of that official as well, so you can jump into that. And then obviously you have your contact information on the left and your previous year's history here on the left-hand side as well. If you have an official contact you, so for your reconciling, so when you have your accounting department request information, we can filter for that, so we can pull information. We can export this to Excel. So if we download this, it's just going to take this information and it will export it into an Excel download that we can then run numbers on. And we can refund. So there's two things that we can do here. One is we can actually say this person's no longer going to register. So we can say, and whether or not you do a refund, you are not, or you can mark someone as not working in that sport, even if you're not giving a refund. So we can say we're going to unregister this person, and they're actually not going to be doing baseball or basketball. They contacted us and just didn't work this year, so we're gonna unregister for them, register them for that. But we can also refund the person, and so it'll show what the fee was, and this is the specific fee that we had set up. So we can say I want to give back $3. And the reason was we had our fee set up. Maybe there was a fee that we had set up a little bit wrong. It was supposed to be $6.99, and we accidentally had it in there wrong. Then you can put in a note if you want to process that refund, and this is going to put the $3 right back onto that official's card. It'll actually be $3.20 in that case because there's some sales tax. And then it'll show partial refund. When we export this, it's going to include the original payment amount and the refund, and then because we unregistered this official, it'll show that that's red, right? So even though they initially paid for basketball, we want to make that clear. What did they actually pay for? Because when you have an official, when you're talking to an official, it's important to understand how the fees were, what they were, so that you can be on the same page. But we also want to give this clarity to that they're not working that, and potentially why you gave that partial refund. With that, that's our presentation, and we'll move into the question and answer. If anyone has questions, feel free to type those into the Q&A section, and we can get those addressed. Happy to talk through those. Great, and I'll talk through these, even though it looks like Jorge responded. Linda asked, does the system verify if it's a valid email prior to accepting the information? It does. So during registration, if somebody tries to put in an incorrect email address, if they just say like hello, that would get rejected. The system would say that's not a valid email address. Yeah. Any other questions? Great. This is available today. You can work with your account managers if you have questions, and they can help answer those or work through any specifics in your area with your account. We launched this a year ago, so it's had a year's worth of feedback, and state offices and local associations using it, kicking the tires, working through a variety of things, helping us really fine tune it. But if there, we'll stay on here for a few more minutes if there are other questions. But otherwise, thank you for your participation.
Awesome, thank you, Nate. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we do have a link in the chat for both our past webinars and upcoming webinars. We will make this one available tonight on our YouTube channel, which will also be included in the past webinar article. So if you want to revisit this, that will be available later on today. Looks like we're wrapping up the questions. So thank you everybody for jumping on. Hopefully this was helpful. Nate did a great job of presenting. But if you ever have any questions on anything, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. We'll stay on for just a few minutes to get any last-minute questions, but if you're feeling comfortable with everything, feel free to jump off.
And we're happy to answer specific questions. They don't have to be generic, but anything that you have, we're happy to answer.